Hey, guys. I hate Monday. Have I mentioned that? I hate Monday. I don't know about you guys, but I do this thing now where I like need Monday to ramp up and then I need Friday to sort of ramp down, and I'm trying really hard not to work on weekends. I kind of like working on weekends, but I'm trying not to do it. And so I do this thing now with Monday. I don't know if this is true for you guys, but I've got to like build myself up to really wanting to do work, and it just doesn't happen on a Monday. And, on Friday, I've got this thing going down, and what I do is just guilt myself nonstop because I'm not doing enough. And I really don't know if the secret is to say I only work Tuesday through Thursday and I'm going to work really hard. But then do I use Tuesday to ramp up and Thursday to ramp down? Am I only working on Wednesday now? This sounds like a perfect life plan. How is everybody tonight? I just sent a really stressful email that I want to talk to you guys a little bit about. I also want to talk to you about an article that I found, a study that I found that's super interesting about women participating in meetings. This has come up a couple times in regard to women in Zoom meetings and how it's easier for men to dominate these things. And then I wanted to just talk to you a little bit about these sessions and what I would ask you guys if you want to do to support me. So the first thing I wanted to point out was this. This is a thing. This is the Lawyer Forward podcast. It's with Breaking Media, which is Above the Law's company. And I just sent an email to the people in charge of this production and told them to stop, which stresses me the freak out because I like to default to action. I like to just go make something and we figure it out as we go and it'll be okay. But I'm also thinking about with this, I want to deliver on the expectations that the audience has, right? The experience that they're looking for. And every time you put something out, there is an investment of trust in terms of people being there with you. Maybe to you this smacks of perfectionism, but I don't think it is. I think this is me trying to make sure that I'm delivering on the promises that I made, right? I've talked about this in a lot of podcasts recently. Who do you take responsibility for? For me, I take responsibility for solo and small firm lawyers, and if this thing is not useful for them, I don't want it to happen. If this is not good enough for them, I don't want it to happen. So I told this machine that's moving very quickly to stop and to stop a production line, to get things right. My brain is going back to a Battlestar Galactica episode about labor relations, and that was a pretty oddly good episode for a lawyer. But this thing does exist. It also exists in iTunes. What I would ask you to do, if you guys are up for it, is just go subscribe to it. Right now, there's a trailer on it. I told them I don't like it. I don't like the music that's in the background. I know it sounds stupid, and again, perfectionism might sound like it's creeping in. But I want to make sure that this delivers on the promises. So I'm going to drop that to you. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I did not bring someone on to talk about this study because, frankly, I neither want to put a man nor a woman in the position of having to talk about this because it's awkward for both. But this study about when women don't speak in meetings is so fascinating, and there's a lot of really interesting data. This is from a BYU study, and there are a lot of sentences in there about church meetings, about from my church and the meetings we have. But this is universally applicable. This data that they went and sought out for when women are speaking in meetings is scary. Right? It's super scary. And one of the things that they found is that you can't. Even when women have a majority, they did a study where they showed if you've got 5 women or 5 people in a room, theoretically, they're each going to take about 20% of the conversation. They would average out to about 20% between them. But when they divided that by gender, they found that the only way the women in the room took up 20% of the conversation was when there was a super majority of women, not a majority, a super majority. So it couldn't just be 3 women in the room and 2 men. It had to be 4 women in the room and 1 man in order for the women's time to average out to 20%, roughly 20%. And this is such a big issue. This study, this report talks a lot about the perspective that women contribute, the differences that happen in meetings when women are able to contribute in meetings, how rare those contributions are, what happens in politics because of it, the policy that comes out when you disengage women. There's a politician gender gap that is a major problem. So they talk about a story, a book that came out about this that's really interesting. And I would, again, I know this is from my church, but I would really strongly recommend that you go back and read that. I've been in a lot of these different sessions on on Zoom and whatever, and the group dynamics that start to surface in those meetings is sort of frightening. And I was talking to my wife about this with me and with books, because I'm about to start another writing project, and I've got a pile of books to go through to help me to create this project. And I realized that of the 5 books that were sitting there, 4 of them were written by men. And I was talking to her about how hard it is to find women writing in this area of systems thinking and systems design. There are women in design thinking that are writing books, because that's an okay women's job, which is so frustrating to me, because there are just as many women doing the science of systems thinking, right? That are doing that work, but they're not publishing as often, and they're not being published as often. A lot of data has come out since the beginning of COVID about how many women have sent articles to be published, and it's just dwarfed by the number of men. And in talking to my wife, I said, really, to write a book, you need 2 things. You need time, and you need to feel like other people give a crap about what you have to say. And if I'm a woman, especially in COVID, I have neither of those, right? There's not a lot of time. There's certainly not excess time. All the data shows that women are doing a disproportionate amount of the work in homes. And so they just don't have time to sit around and write books and write articles and go get published. And then second is, a lot of them just don't feel like they've been taught from the time they were young that people are not as interested in what they have to say. And that just pisses me off. And as somebody who's trying to be inclusive, who's trying to reach out to that, who's trying to get those diverse perspectives, it's really frustrating. It is hard to go find those books. So all of this is a request. And the request is, you've got to get awkward. You've got to get a little weird. If you look at my Twitter handle, in my the description, my bio, at the end it says no manels, right? I will not participate in a panel that is only men, and that is awkward as hell, right? Because I could be awesome on this panel. I could be perfectly qualified, and I'd be great, and I like it, and I could do a good job, and I could help people, and I'm choosing no. I'm going to be awkward, because until the thing with subconscious biases and conscious biases is that you can't defeat subconscious biases unless you consciously do something about it. You literally have to have that moment of awkwardness. You have to do something or say something that feels weird in that moment. And so my request to you is that you feel a little awkward, right? If you're in one of these Zoom meetings, seriously, stop the meeting and say, Susan, you work in this area. You've had a lot of experience with this. What has your experience been, right? Stop the conversation. If you're invited to go speak somewhere, stop them and say, okay, let me see who's on these, because there's got to be moments of awkwardness. There's got to be weirdness, because again, subconscious biases are not defeated unless you use conscious action. It will be weird. Be weird. It's okay. Go do it. That article is really interesting. The last thing that I wanted to ask you guys to do, and I mentioned this before I want to make sure that I give you the right link here. I had mentioned this in the Facebook group, but for these sessions, what I want to do, I've been doing these sessions where I'm talking to people about their practices, which is cool, except we're all facing sort of the same problems. So I'm getting some redundant answers about what are you seeing in the market, what's going on out there. So here's what I want to do. I want to take these moments, these conversations where I'm pulling these different resources from the interwebs and having a conversation about them. I just want to have a co-host, basically. I want to have somebody else next to me that the two of us can just chat back and forth about what's going on. So obviously, I mentioned this is awkward to talk about for both guys and ladies. Because the guys want to beat themselves up too much, and the ladies want to like not overbear or whatever these emotional, the emotional baggage is tied to this. But generally, like, think of, I'm talking to Carolyn Elephant in a few days. Imagine she and I were having a conversation about this, and we were just pinging back and forth about it, right? That's the vibe I want. I just want to talk to you guys about the issues that we're dealing with that are relevant to solo and small practice. So what I would ask you to do is go schedule it. If you feel like participating, if you feel like you want to just hang out with me and have a chat about what's going on in the world, you can just use that booking link, use the Facebook Live session, and schedule a 9 p.m. chat one of these days, and I would love to hang out with you guys. So thank you for hanging out and being patient while I deal with something that's been on my mind. I would encourage you guys to continue to do some Ask Twinsies questions. We had a really funny session on Saturday. We had Shreya Lay come on, and she was very helpful. She wasn't actually. When I think about it, Shreya Lay was only encouraged our worst demon. So we're going to keep on in our search for an adult that can sit with us and tell us that we're stupid. So I hope you guys will participate with that. Drop some Ask Twinsies questions. Be good to each other. Today's Monday. I'm going to go watch an episode of Firefly with my kids because they didn't know what it was, and I felt like that was bad parenting. So we're going to go watch that. Y'all have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.